Hello everyone, this is Yitang, Assistant Professor at the University of Zurich in Switzerland. I'm putting together this 10 minutes video to delve into international organizations' digitalized resources. Many United Nations specialized agencies have taken steps in digitalizing and publishing historical documents and images online. These materials provide insight into the evolution of UN organizations' policy, and it is a treasure trove for researchers, in particular those who could not conduct extensive stays in New York nor in Geneva. In this short video, I would like to share with you my experiences of interacting with these online resources. These experiences are built upon my research for my book, Statistics and the Language of Global Health, and my current 5-year project entitled Rice Knowledge and Practices Between Pacific Asia and West Africa. This video will be useful for researchers at any level who would like to utilize online resources from United Nations, but are unsure of how to start and what potential pitfalls may arise. Specifically, the presentation is based on the online materials of the following organization, whose archival materials I have incorporated into my publications. The first one is the League of Nations. It is the interwar predecessor of the United Nations. The coverage ranged from 1919 to 1947. The second is the United Nations, which is now based in New York. The third one is the World Health Organization, and last but not the least, the World Bank. In the hope of that video can endure well over a longer term of this rapidly changing digital era. This video is not a step-by-step manual of websites layouts, as they could be updated overnight. Instead, I use this video to extrapolate some common aspects of international organizations' website and data access, as well as the advantage and potential pitfalls in using these online materials. So this video is divided into 3 sections. I will start with setting the parameters, talking about different kinds of documents that can be put online. Secondly, I will talk about 3 kinds of limits of interpretation when we use these documents. To conclude, I would like to point to some next steps that we can use to going forward. So let's start with setting the parameters. The first question is to ask what kinds of documents were put online. I usually categorize them into 3 basic groups of documents. On the one hand of the spectrum, fully published, the gray literature, and the archives. Of course, these are categories that might overlap with each other. I would visualize them on a spectrum that you can see over here. The fully published ones are easily accessible to the public through distribution channels. The gray literature, those on the middle, is less easily accessible to the general public as it is mostly circulated among organizations, but not necessarily through commercial or academic distribution channels. Gray literatures often includes technical reports, working papers, policy documents, and so on and so forth. To be clear, you might be able to discover some of them in your university's library, or the authoring organizations. However, they are not as visible and accessible as the fully published materials. Finally, on the other end of the spectrum, the archival materials are those that were not published at all. Correspondences, notes, and all forms of paper trails fall into this category. The organization mentioned above have different kinds of materials that were published online on their websites. Let's start with the World Health Organization, the WHO IRIS, the shorthand for Institutional Repository for Information Sharing. Probably not the most user-friendly platform. This platform includes a wealth of official documents produced by the WHO since its founding years. Notably, the WHO has published more things than most people thought on this website. It includes not only the annual reports and resolutions, but also verbatims of the World Health Assembly. It is absolutely worth exploring. The WHO IRIS does not go into details regarding the structure that produced this document. I will, however, encourage researchers to have a basic understanding of the WHO organigram before taking a leap into this platform. Specifically, it will be useful to know the WHO jargon to search in the WHO IRIS. For example, by using the term verbatim, you will find the minutes of plenary sessions of the WHA, and you can also limit your research by adding temporal filters and topic filters on the left side of the screen, as you can see over here. The United Nations takes a step further as it publishes selective archival folders online. Through this website, you will be able to consult folders that include correspondences and other paper trails. Also, within the United Nations system, the United Nations Office of Geneva digitalized all archival holdings generated by the League of Nations, the interworld predecessor of the United Nations, which was based in Geneva. So these materials were put online in the 2020s. So it is a wonderful resource to grasp interworld internationalism. Finally, the World Bank is probably the most elaborated in historical data sharing. You will find published documents and reports, digitalized archival folders, and oral history by just clicking into the history section of the World Bank website. The World Bank itself was aware of the difference between published documents, gray literature, and archives. For the published documents and gray literature, you will find them under the heading of documented reports, whereas the archives are in the archive section. Now this leads me to the second section of my presentation. Be aware of the frontiers of digital platforms to make sound interpretation. Identify 3 frontiers. Let me start with the first one. The first frontier is the frontier of document types. What sorts of documents were digitalized and put online? Were they only published annual reports, or were they gray literature that could allow you to glimpse into the discussion during policy making? Some organizations are as clear as the World Bank. On the screen, as you can see over here, you see the structure of archival holding. Some organizations, on the contrary, such as the WHO IRIS, are unclear about the range of their online documents. I would suggest that you explore the database before delving into your specific topic. This is crucial because it allows you to set the frontier of your interpretation and argumentation. If the organization is sharing only the published reports, be aware that this represents the official stance, whereas archival correspondence might provide some insight into the core stakeholders and the contributors in the policy-making processes. The second frontier is even more difficult to identify and define. Although United Nations and the World Bank digitalized their archival folders, they didn't digitize everything. Like here you can see with the keyword of a rural development, they gave out more than 13,000 of entries. And don't forget, this is not all despite the large number. This is partially due to archival rules and sometimes simply because the lack of time and resources of digitalization. Digitalization requires significant time and financial resources, and therefore it is always helpful to contact the archivist or to find the archival finding aids online. And please don't forget that the document could be digitalized when, at the moment of digitalization, it is still part of the archival collection. This may sound somewhat very obvious, but do bear in mind that even the fully digitalized archives, such as the League of Nations, the collection is not comprehensive. For example, some files from the health section's early years were lost when the League of Nations headquarters moved from Palais Wilson, as you can see on the left, to Palais des Nations on the right. So even though the League of Nations archives are fully online, they inherit gaps from the physical archives era. To briefly conclude, so what are the strategies of going beyond the online databases? One and foremost, write to the archivist, inquiring about their holdings that are still not available online. The archivists have always been very helpful in presenting the archival holdings and the lacuna. Secondly, you can also find another materials through receiving ends, through, for example, national archives, either in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs or Ministry of Corresponding Mandates. You'll be able to identify another side of the story. Speaking of which, other private actors and their websites are also very useful. For example, the Rockefeller Foundation that financed and worked alongside the United Nations and the League of Nations also includes paper trails of these organizations. You can search it by looking into Rockefeller Archive Center, which also contains quite a few digitalized materials. Or specifically, for the international organization staff that receive Rockefeller fellowships, you can use the database that my colleague and I have constructed via this link. With this short video, I hope that I have provided some simple pointers when delving into the international organization's online resources. It is not only for quantitative interpretation, but also for text mining practices that based on web scrubbing, these organizations' online materials are treasure troves. Nevertheless, just like any other kinds of archives, the materials have their own organizing rationales and conditions that we as users have to bear in mind so as to avoid as much as possible the interpretational biases.